Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome back to the show. So in this episode, we want to talk about several reasons why you may want to consider or why people actually build custom rifles and dive into a little bit about not just the reasons why, but mentally what it does in boosting confidence and the main reason why people do it. And then we want to talk about why you should probably learn to build your own. So it ought to be a great podcast. We're really excited for what's coming up in 2024 for our business here. So just want to share a little bit about it with you here in this podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Without further ado, here we go. Before we get started, I do want to say thank you to a couple great sponsors. First, I want to say thank you to TriggerTech. TriggerTech is the maker of fine rifle triggers. They're made in the great Canadian North Canada. They make lots of different makes and models. They're easy to install with two simple pins. They have one simple screw to adjust the pull weight. They offer two-stage, single-stage, different shoes. Just really a fantastic trigger company, and we recommend it to be put in all of our rifles here. So if you want to upgrade your rifle and you want to do it with the triggers, stop over to triggertech.com. That's triggertech.com today. We'd also like to thank MDT. MDT is a maker of fine rifle chassis. Fantastic. Lots of different options from what we consider the unsung hero, the Oryx, which is retails for right around $429, right up to the JAE 700, which is a fantastic chassis and probably one of my favorites of all time. So if you want to upgrade your rifle and do it with a chassis, you can stop over to mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com today. All right, in this episode, we want to talk a little bit about why people get into building custom rifles. Now, I can share with you with some confidence why people do it, just simply because I did it. And not only did I build a custom rifle, I learned to build them myself, which is a little bit different, and I think the next step beyond. Let's talk about why you build a custom rifle. Most people are looking to have confidence in their equipment. They want to know it's going to perform up to and exceeding their expectations and maybe allow them to become a better shooter. It's sort of like taking just an average street car and trying to enter it into a NASCAR race. You can be a world-class driver, and I'm sure that you could scare the living daylights out of anybody in the vehicle with you if you were a professional driver driving a minivan around a track. But that said, you're not going to win the race. Your equipment can and does often limit shooters. It's common when they leave the shooting school. So they come to the shooting school. We really recommend that they use one of our rifles here. It takes a lot of the stress out of it. It takes a lot of the equipment issues and getting the right equipment. There's just lots of reasons to come through and learn the art of marksmanship. But what happens is they go back home and they get on their personal rifle. And a lot of times it's a factory rifle. Here's what the phone call sounds like when they call back in. They'll be like, hey, I'm having these issues. They'll talk about these little things like, look, I know I can shoot better than this. And so the rifle's not shooting, it's not shooting well, or it's not shooting great, right? And all of a sudden what happens is it turns the needle from pointing to the rifle to pointing to the shooter. You start to lose confidence in yourself. Is it me? I know I can shoot better than this. And so you do it again. And the rifle does the same thing. Either not the greatest group or something that you'd be like, I really thought it would do better than that. Or you get that crazy flyer stuck out there and you're ready to just pull your hair out. They'll call up and they're trying to evaluate everything. And eventually I tell them, look, I don't use the shooting school as a platform to sell rifles. And I'm probably, as a businessman, a little wrong on that, but I don't want to make people feel like that the school was a sales pitch to sell rifles. It never was. The school was always about teaching the art of fundamentals. If you'd love to purchase one of our rifles, we'd love to sell you one for sure, and we'd love to build you one. But that said, we never used it as a sales pitch. We build quality equipment and we use it for what it was used for. The equipment will speak for itself, and if they see the value in it, or if they get into, hey, I want something better, then I hope they look at this as an option. But what'll happen is they'll call in and they're like, I know I can shoot better than that. When I was there at the school, I was shooting lights out, shooting half-inch dots over and over and over again. And I'm like, I guarantee it's not you, right? You've run into the situation to where you've outgrown your equipment. People shooting matches do this quite often as well. So you take a world-class shooter that's growing and learning and getting into that top 10 position or that top 20% quite often. Their equipment now is the Achilles heel. It has to be perfect. It has to work every single time the exact way it's supposed to. And if it doesn't, it's going to cost you that 1 or 2 shots, which again keeps you out of that podium. It's not just new shooters that fall into this. It's actually experienced shooters. And sometimes they just hang on too long. Like I know a shooter that was a good friend of mine that shot a really nice trued up Remington 700. And it was a great shooting rifle. But he would take, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, top 10, but he could never win in a match with it. He was better than his equipment. His equipment was just letting him down just a little bit. He was trying to make it work, and he was definitely a world-class shooter, but at some point you outgrow it. And so in his case, he waited too long. He should have upgraded. One of the things that led me down to building custom rifles here was not just that I wanted a custom rifle, because I learned really quickly that just because it says custom doesn't mean a lot. I mean, if you get a guy taking a worn out lathe out of a tire shop that's been in there turning rotors for God knows how long, and then all of a sudden your gunsmith buys it and puts it in his shop, or he buys a $7,000 made in China lathe that just won't hold tolerances, and now he's trying to chamber rifles. And kudos to him for trying, but you're the guy, right? You're buying that rifle. Just because it's custom doesn't mean it's better. What I learned right out of the gate is I didn't even want that level. I wanted to build the rifle myself, to know every single part was exactly right. For me, I was growing as a shooter. I was loving what I do, but we're shooting really far at critters. So we were filming, we were trying to shoot beyond 1,000 yards, not at big game animals, but at varmint. So you're shooting at something smaller than a gallon water jug at 11, 12, and 1,300 yards. These things have to run like machines, and you don't get 2 and 3 shots, right? If you miss, the varmints, the gig's up, right? They're gone, and you might never get another shot at that animal again. So even becomes hypercritical because we weren't shooting big animals, we were shooting really, really small animals. We weren't shooting an elk, we were shooting something that was smaller than the head of the elk. And so I wanted to go through methodically and piece by piece evaluate the rifle. And I did. In a lathe, machining, opening and truing up the receiver, truing the threads in a lathe, dialed in perfectly concentrically true to the bolt bore raceway, cutting the face of the receiver perfectly straight and true to the threads, and then truing the bolt body. So we would dial in the bolt, we would true the back of the lugs in a lathe, not lapping. We would true the face of the bolt, then we would actually machine the body perfectly straight and true and add metallic sleeves to it. So that way it was held straight and true in reference to the lugs and the face that we just cut. I mean, it literally took 3 to 5 days to do this just to the action, right? And so this is the rabbit hole that I went down. And then learning to chamber with a technique called spiders so we could get a perfectly straight throat. This was the Achilles heel to the rifle. And a lot of gunsmiths, even some of the colleges I went to, they don't teach spiders because it's a very hard and long and drawn out process to dial in the curvature of the bore out where the throat's going to be. It is tedious. It's like having your fingernails ripped. There's nothing fun about it. We hired the lead gunsmith for Gander Mountain once, and he quit on day 2. He was like, I don't want to do this. This is ridiculous. I just want to build hunting rifles. And that was it. He was gone. I mean, we did one barrel dialing out the curvature of the bore, and it was a rough one, right? Because I'm letting him help, and you're turning almost what's essentially 2 4-jaw chucks, one holding the front of the barrel, one's holding the back, and you turn one the wrong way a little bit, and it's almost like you got to start from scratch again. It is just tedious. There was many times I'd be down there for an hour or two dialing it out, and by the way, most gunsmiths would already be done chambering your barrel by that point, and I would have to walk away and go get coffee and be like, okay, I got to stop, because it's just like maddening. You're trying to dial the rifling in 1/10 of a thousandth where the throat's going to be, and dial that perfectly straight so the bullet hits the lands and grooves on the shoulders, because we cut a free bore in there, and so you've got a taper cut into your barrel, and the bullet hits all 4 lands and grooves at the same time squarely. And then that's where the accuracy comes from. There's been lots of books written about how the curvature of the bore or how a crooked throat steals accuracy from a rifle, and I absolutely agree. I will tell you that I've never built a rifle that didn't shoot, and I don't say that braggingly. There has been a lot of pain and suffering in this. It was so hard, like 3 to 5 days to build a rifle, no kidding. And I was passionate about it though. I wasn't going to let it go unless it was perfect. I've never scrapped a barrel. I've never cut a chamber and had to mess it up and throw it away. I've always taken my time, and every single one went from start to finish to a completed rifle. And it was time and patience and just tons of mental fortitude to do it. That led us down to the ACE system, right? Talking about going back to why I built Custom Rifles wasn't about me doing it for a business either. I wanted to do it for myself. I wanted confidence in my equipment that it was built right. I had other people do work for me, and I was blessed to have, good machinists in my family, and I was blessed to have a lot of close friends and family that were not just gunsmiths, but world-class riflesmiths, world-class machinists. I was blessed to have the connections, and for that, I always say thank you and will always remember those people for all the help that they've and things and patience that they've taught me over the years. I built the rifle because I wanted confidence in it. And I will tell you that over the next several years after I started building my own rifles, I not only went from placing in matches, but I believe in the last 10 matches that I competed in, I actually won or placed in, I believe, out of the 10, and this has been a while, so as soon as we started patenting and working and growing our business, my match shooting went down. And of course, I've had lots of injuries to my body, so my right knee has got really 3 major surgeries, lots of pins and rods, and I can't kneel, I can't run. There's all these things that I have to be really careful and ginger with, that I don't wind up under the knife again and disabled for another 6 months. I don't do the running gun type matches anymore. I still shoot, and I may do some things in the shooting world again here coming in 2024, but probably not the crazy stuff. I just can't kneel and squat and all these things that we used to be able to do. With my own rifles, I've had more wins than anything I've ever done with a factory rifle, and that's just a fact. Some of the matches that I won, I felt like I wasn't doing anything. Like it was just easy. And now I trained and I worked hard on the fundamentals. I never questioned my equipment. If I missed a shot, if a shot went errant, I ruled it to the wind or to the shooter, but I never left my head go to where, oh no, maybe it's my load. Oh no, maybe it's my rifle. Oh no, maybe it's my scope. As soon as you start questioning your equipment, then you're in trouble. Your head goes in the bucket and it may not come back out. That's where I don't want to be. And this is what led me down to building the custom rifles to begin with. It wasn't to start a business. It turned into one. And, we've been doing this for going on 2 decades now, which I find to be amazing. The business itself has been about 17 years. And prior to that, several years, a lot of people that stop into our newer shop where we have a much bigger facility, and they're like, wow, this is really awesome. And they assume that we're just starting or we're a new startup or something. And my wife's my office manager, and she'll giggle a little bit and she'll say, nah, we've sort of been doing this for 17 years. And they'll look at you like, really? And it's like, yeah, a lot of work went into this. I never got into this business to stay in the business or to even make a dollar at. I got into it for a very selfish reason, and that wasn't to make money. It was to build a high quality rifle for myself. And then it just turned out that people started asking and saying, hey, could you chamber a rifle for me? Hey, could you do this for me? And it slowly turned into a working business, which I think a lot of small businesses do. They start in their garage, in their home, and all of a sudden it turns into and blossoms into a full-grown business, which I'm blessed and grateful for every day. So why should you learn to build a custom rifle or build a rifle? I always caution, like one of my taglines that I want to keep for our business is better than a custom at a price you can afford. And I really mean that. There's a lot of customization work that can be done out there. You can have a hand-forged custom knife that costs $2,000 with whatever materials it's made out of, and it still be a garbage knife as far as the tool it's made to be. It just looks pretty, right? And the same thing can happen with rifles. And the sad part is, I think for most consumers, is that they can't pick out which one's the good one and which one's the bad one. I always say that you can take 50 rifles and lay them out on a firing line, especially custom rifles. You really can't pick them out. I mean, you can't look at them externally and say, that's going to be a great shooter, that one's going to be terrible, because they look the same from the outside. The secret and the heart of a great shooting rifle has nothing to do with the exterior. It has everything to do with the interior. It has to do a lot with the clearances and tolerances of the receiver, which we're going to dive into in the next podcast. It has a lot to do with how the barrel is mated to the receiver. It has a lot to do with how the chamber is cut. I hate to say it, but we are very picky on every part and piece of our rifle. We're always watching and always holding people accountable that this is the level that we play at. We are A+. We don't do good or good enough. That is not my tagline at all. We are building the best, and that's what we do. And if we're not going to do that, we're not going to do it at all. I'm not in business or in the market to repeat what other people do or to stay at that level. I want to build the best rifles in the world. That's what we do. So we had some IBI barrels come in, and IBI crowns their own barrels. And because they tension lock, so it's the way that they taper the carbon on, and then there's a hidden lock in there that holds the carbon in place, and it's epoxied. It's really cool, and it's a super rigid design. It's very similar to what you'll see a lot in the high-end PCP air guns, right? That said, when we got the last batch of barrels in, I actually went and recrowned every single one of them. Now, they crown them there, and the agreement is that they hold 1/10 and they manually cut our crown. That is the agreement that we had, period. I had this conversation with him saying, look, I know that you probably hear me saying this and you're probably thinking, this is just a guy grandstanding and beating his chest that he demands all these super high quality. And I said, look, that is not the reason I'm having this conversation with you. The reason I'm having this conversation with you is that this is the level that we hold ourselves to. And if we're going to do business with other people, we expect them to do the same because we don't build good enough. We strive for perfection. And that means dialing that crown in within 1/10. And I want it done not in the CNC. I want it done, because the way that they attach and thread and taper, I want you to cut the crown manually because they can't hold the 10th in the CNC that they're doing it in. They can hold less than 1/1000, but they can't hold the 10th. And they agreed to it, which I'm really grateful for. They hired a new, polisher, someone that does some of the external finishes, and he had boogered up the crowns. I mean, it was ever so slightly. But as soon as we got the last batch and I looked and I could see it, I was like, oh, I see something. So I got it at the borescope and we inspect them. And sure enough, at the very edge of the lands and grooves where the crown was cut at a very sharp edge, and where we like to cut a little bit of a radius on that so it doesn't booger up when you're cleaning it, you could see where some of the lands and grooves were sort of rolled in or dinged up a little bit. And what happened was when he was polishing them, he was dinging up the crown. And so I went through, I probably have 7 hours invested in, re-dialing in and cutting these crowns within 1/10. And we've done every single one. It would be easy to say that, they're fine. They're probably good enough for anybody else out there that would say that, it's just a couple little dings. It's not that big of a deal. But it is to me. And I wouldn't let it go. If it wasn't good enough for what I would want to shoot, it's not going to be good enough for something I'm going to deliver to somebody else. So literally, I took all of these barrels, inspected them all, and went back and one by one, dialed them in on a manual lathe to 1/10,000ths and did a nice, beautiful little 45 chamfer on that to cut that off the way that it should be done. And they just look absolutely beautiful. And that's what we do. One of the reasons is we're trying to deliver that to the rifle, to the customer that way. You have to be careful when you build a custom that you're getting what you're paying for. You can get pretty and you can get brands, but you're looking for quality, and they don't always tag each other. Like, it's not a package deal where if you buy braggingly the most expensive handmade rifle in the world with the stock that only the King of Spain owns the second of, it doesn't really necessarily mean it's going to be a great shooter. I've been on firing lines with some world-class rifles. It doesn't mean any. Really, the heart of it is the machining work and how things are made together. That's the problem, is that even if you go custom, it doesn't mean you're still going to get a great shooting rifle. You're still vulnerable. You still have that knack in your stomach when you go to the range and you're like, is this thing going to work? Did I get value for my money? I mean, now you didn't spend $1,200 or $2,000 for a rifle. Now you spent $8,000, $7,000, right? Did you see, or are you going to get return on your investment in how much more that you spent on the gun? It's in your mind. You're going to the range and you're testing it, and you're probably even a little bit nervous of whether or not you made a good decision, right? One of the things that I think that we're trying to do to set ourselves a little bit apart and different is we're not wanting to deliver you the rifle and just give you the song and dance of what we do. We want you to actually build it. We're trying to sort of change the industry in a little bit, turn the keys over to the customer, let them do the final assembly, let them see the quality of the work, let them have confidence that A, it's built right, that they know everything about it, that there's nothing in there that they can't figure out or replace when it gets shot out, or there's that nagging question mark that's always going to be in the back of your head. It's gone. Just the same reason when I built my first custom rifle, I remember it to this day, it was a 223. It was a hammer. I mean, I can't tell you, I went to the range here. So let me share with you my first custom rifle build I did myself. I trued a Remington 700. I did all the work. I did it in 223 because I shot a lot of 223 trainers, and that was going to be my trainer. And I had a decent load worked up that I was shooting one of my I guess you would say factory trued, so lapped lugs and clean crown and stuff like that, but not a custom barrel. The first group out of the gun was just hammered. I was like, oh my God, and then I shot another group. I'm calling my wife like, oh my God, God, it worked, like you should see how this thing shoots. And I was so excited, right? And so that's what I want the customers to experience. It was the greatest feeling ever to know that not only did it work and that the rifle was just a hammer, but to know that I got confidence in it. I know the rifle. I did every part and piece of it. When you get into building a custom rifle, I think that's the other part is setting up a completed system, which now we have, and where you can actually pick and choose all the individual components. And we can build it as a completed rifle with you just sticking in your trigger, which is very common. Or eventually you're going to be able to buy all the individual components and do the final assembly there. The same thing happens though. You know the rifle. You know the people who build it. You know the quality that they hold themselves to. You know the quality of the stuff that you're getting. But then you can do the final assembly. And then I think what the most important part is that you can maintain it. One of the things I think with a custom rifle, and I say, give me 3 reasons why I should build a super high quality rifle. And the first part is when you learn to build your own rifle, you get value in it. There's big price savings in it. We build the best with the best, only, components, machines, and everything wise. But the reason we're able to offer things at the prices that we do is because we're scaling, and the fact that we're set up in our business model to do that. We're not trying to say, hey, we need to make, $5 million off of 600 rifles. We want to build thousands. And so one of the things we're able to do is in that business model is we're able to actually sell the components. And the total cost of the rifle in some cases is half of what you would see across the board of almost any competitor that we deal with. And we're doing it with just twice as good components, multiple patents involved, and a system that not only has the chamber as a standalone entity, but reusable. So the first thing I always say to is why you want to learn to build your own rifle is the same reason why people build AR-15s. There's price, right? You get to save some money and you get to put that towards other things, maybe upgrading your stock, maybe upgrading your optic. Put that towards other working components of the rifle. The other part is confidence, right? You know the rifle. Why you want to build your own rifle? Because you know it. You have confidence that when you take it out, that if you have a bad day at the range, it's just you're having a bad day. It's not the equipment. And too many times over the years, I've been with shooters to where things start to go wrong, and as soon as they start to doubt their equipment, you can forget about it. They're done right there on the spot. Their head goes in the bucket. They do not come back out. That's the second reason. And the third reason, which I find to be the most important part, is you now have control over rebuilding it or using it for other things. Don't get me wrong. It would be awesome. Like I was watching somebody posted up on YouTube, this guy's, $3 million gun collection, and they were doing a tour of all of these really cool rifles that he had. That's really cool. I mean, I really enjoyed watching the video and some of the really unique and rare firearms that he had and crazy firearms. But that said, that really falls out of the realm for most of us. What I look at rifles for is they're a tool, and I want them to be a good tool, right? When you invest in a good quality rifle, let's just say you've built your elk gun. What would be nice is after the elk hunt, if you decide, hey, I'm not going elk hunting for another 5 years, rather than having $8,000 laying in your cabinet on an elk rifle, right, between the optics and everything else, or $5,000 or $4,000. You can actually take that rifle out, you can replace a couple components, and you can change it from a 6.5 PRC to a 22 Creedmoor and go out and use it for your varmint rifle. You can change it from a heavy barrel to a light barrel. You can change the caliber. You can change the caliber on the barrel. So let's just say you build a 6.5 PRC and you want to shoot a 6.5 Creedmoor. You can take the 6.5 PRC chamber off and put the 6.5 Creedmoor chamber on. Eventually, we're going to be showing you how to do this stuff. When we play with new calibers, you can come out and, change different calibers out and try new things without tearing down and rebuilding an entire rifle. Think about goofing around. You want to build a 300 Blackout, which is on my bucket list. It's no longer, I got to go out and buy a whole rifle for $2,000 or $3,000, or you can simply buy a chamber and a barrel and put it on and see if you like it. If you need a 223 bolt face, you buy a 223 bolt face, a chamber and a barrel, and you go out and shoot a 300 Blackout for a while. For me, the value of it is not just having confidence in your equipment, not just being able to save a lot of money, but then having control to change it as things change. It would be so cool. It would be like being able to change your vehicle from the minivan where you got 7 people piled in to your Jeep that's lifted, 4 inches off the ground and 35-inch tires so you can go crawling through the mud. We can't do that with our cars, but we can do that with our rifles. In a system that works and plays well together, it's not hard to do. And I think there's good value in that. And the fact that, and I do it on myself all the time. I can change my rifle at any time to any caliber that I want to play with for any reason. If I want to go on a bear hunt, I don't have to panic that I don't have a bear rifle. I don't have to go out and buy one. I can use the same stock, the same receiver. I can change a couple little components, and I can change to another caliber. And I think that's where the market's going to go. We bet in business all the time, and every business owner does, as to what they think the market's going to do and where it's going to go. I'm going to put the gauntlet down and say that now that we have a complete rifle system, in other words, every individual piece of the rifle is truly a component, including the barrel and the chamber are now standalone entities. Now that we have a true 100% interchangeable rifle system, I can take two rifles and I can tear each one down and swap all the parts to each other, and they will shoot exactly the same. Once you have that system, you now turn the custom rifle world into a consumer-built custom rifle world. You now turn the keys over to the consumers, to where we are now a components-based retail business and support team for customers building their rifles, not custom rifle builders. That is who we are, and that is who we're going to grow to be. In 2024, we're working on it right now, is we're going to have a store where you can actually log on and purchase all of your individual components, pay for them right there, and have them shipped to your house. You can bring them here and build them with us if you like under our guidance. You can take some of our classes. We have lots of different assets. We do have our first building class if you're interested in joining us. I think it's $189. It's almost like an open house demo day with lunch. You can come in and see all the components. You can build a rifle with us. We're going to show you how we do it all, work all the parts and pieces. Just a couple fun classes that we announced here. I think we have one coming up in a couple months, and then we did two through the winter, just for a great chance for if you want to get away and come and see the system. You're welcome to join us. So the next couple podcasts we're going to get into is we're going to start breaking down the individual components, because we spend a lot of time talking to customers about, okay, now you've got your rifle. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. And this industry changes quite often and a lot. And so I want to go back through and revisit, starting with probably the first question as we get into the receivers. And we'll talk a little bit about Bat Machine. Might even see if I can get Bruce back on the phone a little bit and do an interview with him sometime in the next two podcasts, and to talk a little bit about what they do. Some of the misclaimers that you'll hear other action makers put on world-class receivers like Bat Machine, like, hey, you don't want them that tight because if they get dirty, they jam. No, I've won many matches with a Bat Machine in the dirt, in the rain, in the sand, and I've never had one jam on me. So there's a lot of stuff that they throw out there that's not true to plant seeds. And I want to sort of combat that a little bit and talk about why we use Bat Machine, why we use their components, and talk about the three different options that you have when you build using them, especially with our system here. And so then we're going to get into chassis and stocks again. And I want to talk about some things when it comes to the stocks, because this is really important. We sell them, but I got to talk to you a little bit about some of the things. And then same way with triggers, we're going to get into triggers. We're going to talk about barrels again. And we have another barrel company online. We've been working with them for a while, and I think it's going to be our long-term solution. We might bring them on for a podcast. But we do want to talk about barrels again. And then we're going to get into and talk about the final assembly and how you put them together. So it ought to be a great series coming up, and building a custom rifle and building your own custom rifle. And so we're sort of excited. I do want to say a quick thank you to our last sponsor, Krieger Barrels, maker of fine cut rifle barrels. They're made in the great state of Wisconsin. They are a family-owned and operated business. We really appreciate them being part of our team here. They have a new program called Krieger Direct. You can log on and order your barrel and have it in as little as 2 to 3 business days. Now, keep in mind, Krieger's lead time is 9 months to a year for custom orders. And so just the fact that you can log on there and get a barrel next week, to me, is just absolutely amazing, right? So if you want the best and you need it now, you can take advantage of it. You can stop over to Krieger Barrels and look for Krieger Direct and get your barrel in as little as 2 to 3 business days. So we got into session 3 for our online long-range shooting school. Just a couple updates here real quick. We did our first video talking about mil radians. We'll be posting up one new video a week until we complete the series, and it's going to be bonus content. If you want to take our online long-range shooting school and you like to do it from the convenience and comfort of your own home, you can stop over to Wolf Precision or stop over to Patreon and sign up there. Also, we put up our 2024 shooting school dates. They are live and active. We are limiting the long-range shooting schools next year to 11 classes in person. We are growing as a business, which requires a lot of our time here. And so take advantage of, if you would like to join us, you can sign up now. We have our early bird special where you can take $50 off the class if you sign up before December 31st. We also have 3 slots left for the fall classes for this year. So if you did want to join us for a couple classes, you'll see that we have a couple slots left. You can stop over to wolfprecision.net and check out all the long-range shooting schools there. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us. If you enjoy the podcast and you'd like to share it, you know someone that loves to shoot or loves this content, and you share it, we really appreciate that. If you enjoy the show and you leave us a nice comment, we appreciate that as well. If you'd like to support the show, you can stop over to Patreon and join the Wolf Pack. It's $3 a month, and we appreciate that support there as well. Thank you, everybody, for doing that as well. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate it. We'll see you guys in the next podcast, where we're going to dive into and talk about receivers. And I think it's an important one. And believe it or not, it is, besides the ACE system, it is the heart of the rifle. And I want to talk a little bit about the differences between them and things you want to look for and pay attention to build a world-class rifle. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us. My name is Jamie Dotson. I'm your host, and you are listening to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.